Okay, so we're starting now the further halachas on Shabbos. We're talking about traveling at the days before on a ship, the days before Shabbos. In other words, a lot of the things we talk about are on Shabbos itself. What's the problems with doing things on Shabbos? But sometimes you have to also set yourself up before. Like the last siman we learned was really about asking a guy to do something for you from before Shabbos. So here we're talking about also things that could be an issue. Now, what are the problems with traveling before Shabbos? If you leave on a Wednesday, then what did you do wrong? What's the problem? So there's basically, it seems like there's about 6 issues that you could have. So number one is that when Shabbos comes, you might, when Shabbos comes, which is the seventh day, you might want to do things in the boat. You might be needed to do things on the boat. So if you do things on the boat, all of a sudden you're going to be doing malachis. So don't set yourself up in a way that you might come to that. That's number one. Number two, another thing is that depending on the situation of the ship itself, it's very possible that things that are being done, malachas that are being done, even if they're being done by goyim, are being done for you. And that's a problem like we spoke about before. When a guy does something for you, that's also an isser. So that would be a second issue. Number three, depending on how you travel, you might have an issue of tchumim. Tchumim means that on Shabbos, you're not supposed to go outside of a certain geographic distance. That might be a problem of violating Shabbos as well. If you're on a ship, you might be going in a place that's outside of the tchum. Number four is that you're going to take away from the mitzvah of Oyning Shabbos, as we'll see a little bit soon, even if you're not on the ship when it comes to Shabbos, but because you just took this journey, you're still all rattled and frazzled, and you're not settled. And when it comes to Shabbos, you can enjoy yourself. You see a lot of people. I remember my grandparents, whenever they would go on a trip, usually here, they would be packed like 2 weeks before with their suitcases by the door ready to go. They were an older couple and it was very, it would get them, they would get very, disoriented. So same thing, people get sick, they get this sick, they come, they have to, a few days, they get colds, they get flus, and they just need to rest more. They're just out of whack. And especially, well, this wouldn't apply here, but I guess especially if you have like a time difference. So that would be another issue, that you're not going to enjoy Shabbos because you're so thrown up. Number five is, in general, there's a problem with being on any boat or ship on Shabbos because we're afraid it might lead to someone swimming. Okay, we're going to get to that. That's literally, we're getting that. It's the whole Siman. If you open up your Shulchan Aruch, we're in Siman Ayin Dalet. If you open up your Kitzur, we're in Siman Ayin Dalet, and you'll be able to see everything we're going to discuss. So the other issue over here would be that you're not allowed to swim on Shabbos. Swimming on Shabbos is a whole nother situation. It might lead you to do other things and to build a raft or whatever. But that's another problem. If you're on a ship, then you're basically swimming. You're moving on a ship on Shabbos in the water, which is very similar to swimming. Again, it's not exactly, but these are different reasons. And number six is it might be considered that you might have to, again, this could also be a small boat, not necessarily a big cruise liner, but it might need you to be involved in the movements of the ship. And if you're involved in the movements of the ship, that could be considered as if you are the one who's moving the ship itself, which would be considered almost like carrying in a public domain more than Dalet Amos, which could also be a problem. Now, some of these things you'll see as we go through, we're going to address different things. Some of them are bigger concerns, some of them are not such big concerns, but all of them will hopefully be addressed as we go through. When we say you could, you can't, they're all going to be, we're going to talk about them. Yeah.
Think that
before we're gonna it's gonna come a little bit into on Shabbos itself, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about taking a trip before, and we'll also talk about going on the ship on Shabbos itself, because that's also some of the things that we mentioned, like swimming on Shabbos. Or we didn't get into it yet. We're going to talk about it right now. I was just giving an introduction of what are possible issues, so we keep these things in mind as we go through it, so we could see what are some of the concerns. Okay, so now let's go into Siman Ayin Dalet Sif Aleph. Din hamaflig bisfina. These are the halachis of one who wants to travel on a ship. In general, it doesn't even say on Shabbos. It just says you want to travel on a ship. Sif Aleph. Ein mafligin bisfina al hayam. You're not allowed to go off on a journey when the ship will be going on the Yam. What's the Yam? The Yam is the ocean. And they add from the Alter Rebbe where he writes, Biyami miluchim, that it's not any body of water. It's specifically here, he refers to salt water. Now, it doesn't mean literally salt water, because the salt is not what's going to make it allowed or not. Salt water means basically wild, open water in a Rosh Hashanah and that type of thing. And part of that is because the salt water, which means, I guess, live, fresh water. I'm not sure if it's called fresh or not fresh, but it has a life to itself, and people you get seasick. So part of the issue over here is that when you're on very, very calm water, like you go on a little kayak somewhere, obviously nothing's going to happen to you. But if you're going on a boat that rocks and things like that, so then it could throw you off. So you shouldn't go. You shouldn't take off on a journey. Pachos mishloisha yamim kodim Shabbos, within 3 days of Shabbos. Now, what does 3 days mean? 3 days means 72 hours. So this starts from Tuesday night. Tuesday night, right? What's today? Today's already Wednesday. So from last night, which would be 72 hours before Shabbos, you would not be able to embark on a trip that you're going to be on. That you're going to be on a ship. That you're going to be on a ship. Even if you get off the ship before Shabbos, because you're going to be so, razzled, frazzled, thrown off, disoriented, whatever. And then it's going to take away from your pleasure on Shabbos, which, as we said, is a mitzvah of Einik Shabbos. Now, therefore, dahainu, what does this mean to say? That miyom revi ve'elach, from Wednesday and on, and this means Tuesday night. Also, you're already not allowed to go on a ship. Now, the question is, like someone asked, why Wednesday? If these are the issues, then why not Tuesday? And why not Monday? If the issue is that you're going to be in a situation where it's going to throw you off, then who cares when it is? So part of the answer is, if you know, the first 3 days after Shabbos are called continuation of the last Shabbos. From Wednesday and on, it's already preparing for the next week. So as we know, in the Shir Shayim, it's called L'chon Ktana or something, which is basically where we already say L'chon because we're already preparing for Shabbos. But in general, Wednesday is already you're preparing for Shabbos. So the first 3 days, we can't say you can never go on a ship. I mean, that's a little ridiculous. But Poyel, if someone's going to be in a situation where they lose Einik Shabbos, but they left on Sunday, it is what it is. It's life. That's how we live. But don't schedule it to go so close to Shabbos where you're already in the zone of preparing and it's already going to be inevitable. Then don't do that. Now, he does add one condition. If someone is going to do a mitzvah, then mutar afilu b'erev Shabbos, you'd even be, according to the Kitzur, you'd even be able to go on erev Shabbos if it's for a mitzvah. Now, what does that mean? So let's look at the Alter Rebbe first. The Alter Rebbe says like this: even if you're going for a mitzvah, and therefore you're allowed to go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So still, when you get on that boat, you should make a deal with the guy, the one who's the captain, and he should rest, and he shouldn't travel on Shabbos. Okay, now what's the likelihood? What's the likelihood that he's going to listen to you? So the Alter Rebbe says, some people would say, if you know that he's not going to listen to you, he's for sure going to travel on Shabbos. There's no way he's stopping. Then some would say, some would say that you're not allowed to go on the ship then. Now, if you don't know for sure and you ask him, and he goes on Shabbos because he wants to get there faster, there's nothing you could do. That's what some people say. Wait, let me just finish. That's what some people say. However, and this is the opinion of the Magen Avraham, where he says that if there's a doubt that maybe you won't have a chance to do the mitzvah. In other words, the mitzvah is timely. If you don't get there, you're going to lose the mitzvah. So this opinion would say that, in this opinion, it says that, or if you won't be able to find another boat that will get you there in time, so the mitzvah will be there, but you won't be by the mitzvah. So then the Alter Rebbe says, Yesh lahakla b'shas hadchak, you could be makel in a shas hadchak. And this would be like this. Basically, the Alter Rebbe brings the first opinion like the Kitzur brought, which is the opinion of the Magen Avraham, that even when it comes to a mitzvah, you shouldn't really do it, you shouldn't really go on that ship, regardless. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't agree. The Alter Rebbe says if it's for a mitzvah and it's within 3 days, so then he says, then you could, as long as you ask the guy, and there's a possibility that he's going to stop. Now, but the Alter Rebbe says you shouldn't do that unless it's like a shas hadchak, or you might lose the chance to do the mitzvah. So then you should. Otherwise, you really shouldn't rely on that. Now, the only thing is that it comes up from the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe also says this is all when you're going on an actual journey. Let's say you're going on the ship on this ocean, but you're going on a Wednesday on like a cruise that goes from let's say the Statue of Liberty to the port of what do you call it, the New York City port or whatever it is. In other words, you're going for 20 minutes across and 20 minutes back. Even if it rocks a little bit, you'll be fine by the time Shabbos comes. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a little bit more of an extended journey. Okay, we'll stop here.